that was fighting for gay rights, and people were killed.
Nobody was killed at Stonewall.
Nobody was killed.
The idea of spoilers has completely shaped the way the fan base interacts with the show. You may be thinking to yourself that it isn't that big of a deal, but the small effects that it has quickly builds up until ultimately being pretty detrimental to each queen's given career, both financially and reputationally. But how could this be the case? After all, as much as spoilers are out there, not everyone seeks them out. So how exactly would this have outwardly effects? Well, to sum it up, it does have negative effects, and it's time we talked about it. In that same way, imagine you have an amazing idea, whether it's for a personal blog, a portfolio, or even an online store, and you're ready to share with the world. But then reality hits. Where do you even start? Well, that's where Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video, and a great supporter of this channel, comes in. I've been in the position of staring at a blank screen, not knowing where to begin. But with Squarespace, building a website isn't some stressful, time-consuming task. Their drag and drop tools and sleek templates let you create something that looks professional without needing to know a single line of coding. Just choose a design, tweak it to fit your style, and you're set. But what really makes Squarespace stand out is that it's all in one. Everything you need: website hosting, custom domains, built-in SEO tools, and even an online store. Selling something? Squarespace Payments lets you accept Apple Pay, Klarna, Afterpay, and more. So your customers have flexibility. If you've been thinking about launching your own site, now is the perfect time. Click the link in the description to get 10% off your first website or domain and start bringing your ideas to life, plus supporting the channel while doing so. Now, let's begin. For us to talk about spoilers in the RuPaul's Drag Race franchise, it's important we differentiate, for the purpose of this discussion, what would fall under its definition. I personally don't consider knowing the full cast before it's officially announced a spoiler. It can be fun to know who it is that will be returning, and being able to speculate how you think each queen will do. It's when people take it a step further towards wanting to know how each one of them plays that the issues start to rise. Yet, what would be the point in even wanting to know the outcome of a season? Well, spoilers are something that can be super exciting from the perspective of a fan that just can't wait until the new season airs. I mean, especially for All Stars cast, the curiosity of how certain queens ended up doing in the competition can have you wondering for days over the reality of their return. With that though, arises many problems. But first we have to take a look into the logic of people that actively are involved in keeping up with any bit of leaked information from a season's filming. Or I guess why spoilerinas, the name given to fans that love to read spoilers, think that it's enjoyable. The main argument brought forth by spoilerinas is that it's fun to read up on spoilers for a season, because you can look forward to certain events, or the fact that sometimes spoilers can be fake. So there will occasionally be unexpected things that happen. It also helps you seek out layers within the editing of storylines, etc, etc. Unfortunately, these arguments make close to no sense, and is the product of people trying to cope with the fact that they lack a self-control to not read up on spoilers. Yes, that is a pretty on-the-nose statement, but let me explain why it's true. People who actively look at spoilers don't get the full viewing experience, subsequently having a tainted outlook of a given season. There's not really a way to argue back at this. Watching a season with fresh eyes, experiencing it the way that it was meant to be presented to viewers, is only something that you can do once. Anytime you rewatch it again, you'll see things differently. Episodes, while still fun, won't have a degree of tension because you know how it turns out. The person that gets eliminated tends to be defined by whatever placement they got. You view the winner of the season with different eyes. You know how certain rivalries end up panning out. So the perspective you had in your initial viewing can never be replicated. It's why people are always excited for a new season, since it's new content that they can consume. So let's say that you did read up on spoilers, and you happen to read who makes it to the finals of the competition. Then automatically, you'll view the rest of the cast as less than, or I guess, the losers of the cast. As opposed to if you had gone in with no knowledge, where you might have ended up rooting super hard for some of them, but you didn't, because you knew they had no chance given the spoilers. In a sense, you spend your time just focusing on the queens that ended up being finalists, since you know thanks to spoilers that none of the other queens have any actual chance of getting the crown. Mind you, right now, there's for sure people watching this that are spoilerinas. So don't be offended if you are, as I know that not all spoilerinas are out there trying to be malicious, but it goes without saying that a lot of people that read up on spoilers knew who the top 4 of season 17 was right when the the cast was officially announced, because they went ahead and searched it up on YouTube videos that run down the spoilers, which is another issue that I'll dive into in just a second, because now we need to touch on how we even got to this point in the timeline of the RuPaul's Drag Race fandom. When I first got into the series, spoilers were actually just rumors. Most of the time, what people said would happen would turn out to be wrong. At the time that season 7/season 8 was airing, I actively was on Reddit, and since it still was the beginning years of my obsession for the series, I was always trying to find any new bit of information that I could find so I could eat it all up. Particularly, I remember the first spoiler I ever saw was shortly after the first 3 episodes of season 8 aired, where people found out who the top 6 queens of the season would be, since the girls that were guests for the makeover challenge ended up posting behind the scenes pictures of them on set, and people were able to analyze the makeup style of each queen and correlated it to each of the queens in the cast. That tended to be the extent of it. Yeah, maybe there'd be a spoiler about a given elimination, but it was always vague, came last minute, and tended to be super rare. In fact, the first season where spoilers started to skyrocket, marking a turning point moving forward, was All Stars 2. I'm not going to dive too much into the lore because you can just watch this video linked below if you want to know the details, but essentially, after filming for All Stars 2 finished towards the end of 2015 summer, Alaska told her boyfriend about everything that happened, including eliminations, who made the top 3, how many challenges she won, but unfortunately, they would end up breaking up shortly after this. And Alaska's now ex-boyfriend went on a tirade spoiling everything online. It was interesting to see this happen in real time since there was still a sense of wonder over how things actually played out. Even though pretty much all the details had been leaked, since all precedents before this tended to be a 50-50 chance, we didn't know for sure. So by the time All Stars 2 actually started airing almost 1 year later in August of 2016, it had been speculated thanks to Alaska's ex that if Coco Montrese did in fact go home, and if Adore Delano ended up quitting, then it meant that everything that had been leaked was in fact the truth. And so it happened. Coco went home, Adore quit, and it was clear that the top 3 was most likely going to end up being Katya, Alaska, and Detox. Of course, there was still surprises like the runways, the mirror scenes, etc., but it brought forth a question. Since it was super clear that Alaska had broken her NDA, should she now be disqualified from winning the crown? Given that she had a pretty bad reception going into the finale for eliminating fan favorites, it was a pretty substantive argument. I actually remember thinking after Alaska was crowned, even though it was 100% deserved, that it was going to be the beginning of a new era. Future queens would be able to be a lot more free in leaking spoilers, because Alaska was proof that even if you're caught red-handed, you won't have to deal with the consequences and still end up being considered to win the crown. Naturally, this doesn't mean that spoilers going rampant is Alaska's fault, given that there is production members that leak the information themselves now, yet it was a symbolic turning point moving forward. It was also the last season that I actively tried to find information about prior to the season airing. Yes, this means that at one point I was a spoilerina. I mean, it was only for about 2 or 3 seasons that I did this, but I remember thinking to myself just how much more amazing would my All Stars 2 viewing experience had been had I not known about Alaska's ex leaking all those spoilers, or the impending assumption that the crown would either go to Alaska, Katya, or Detox. It's for that reason, when season 9 came along, I went in actively avoiding any spoilers for it, just to see the difference, resulting in such an elevated viewing experience, especially with twists like Valentina's elimination or Sasha's rose petals. It solidified a key difference, being that again, you'll never be able to earn an experience going fresh into the season than you would if you were aware of spoilers. Yet now that we have all that background laid out, how exactly did this start destroying the way the fanbase interacts with the series? Or how has it affected the queens themselves? Well, to put it simply, there's 3 areas to look at. A, the queens. Club promoters knowing their placements makes it so that they start to prioritize those that made it further to be booked at their venue, while at the same time making it difficult for those that went home early to not just get a booking, but also negotiate their price for it. Typically, when a season is in the middle of airing, that's when the queens can make the most amount of money. Yet, if a promoter knows that you went home early, they won't be as inclined to agree to your terms if you ask for more money as an early out, versus asking for money as a finalist. The next 2 areas sort of go hand in hand, which is the fan theories that arises from the spoilerinas and how it inevitably affects the portion of the fans that avoid spoilers, where without even knowing it, they're being driven to think the same things based entirely on people that read up on spoilers. We see this, for example, in the patterns that occurred in general discussions on social media in the past couple years. Season 13 was the first time that I noticed something peculiar the moment the official cast was released with the promo. The promotional rollout of a season tends to be a pretty interesting time, since all we really had to judge each contestant was dependent on either how good their promo look was or how they came across in the Meet the Queens. Yet off the bat, there was a substantial amount of hype being built around Rosé, Gottmik, Simone, and Candy Muse. For the most part, this was fine given that Candy did have one of the best promo looks of the cast, being the drag daughter of Aja, and what many considered to be one of the best Meet the Queen showcases ever. In Gottmik's case, she was the first trans man to be on the show, and to be fair, Simone's look in itself was pretty impressive, along with being from the same house as Gigi Good. So yeah, from that point of view, it made sense that they were showered with attention. However, what made the hype for these four so peculiar was how the rest of the cast was sort of ignored. What's more is that there was a considerable amount of people who were posting their guesses for the top 4 queens of the season. And coincidentally, most were including Simone, Candy Muse, and Gottmik in theirs. Naturally, once the season began airing and made complete sense these were the frontrunners, yet it goes without saying that it doesn't take much speculation to assume that a large part of the initial reaction when the promos drop can get steered by those that had read spoilers in advance. For instance, some of you that didn't read these spoilers could have very well had these 4 in your top 4 prediction. But it's important to note that there's probably a good portion of fans who don't read spoilers and are inadvertently sucked into the spoilers because they saw all the hype that had been built around 4 queens, ultimately changing their perspective on who they should be looking out for prior to the first episode even being released. This pattern would continue to happen in the years that followed, with season 14, season 15, even All-Star seasons too. Right now, season 17 is almost finishing its season, with the final episodes about to air. When the promos were first released though, off the bat, there was a clear hype that came towards queens like Susie Toot, Lexi Love, and Jewel Sparkles. Again, these are just examples, but it places you in the mindset where you have to assume that those that get the most amount of hype from the fans online the moment promos are released, you might as well mentally prepare yourself that those are most likely the queens that will end up making it to the end of the competition. And usually that's exactly what ends up happening with almost every season in recent history. So then, after going over all of this, how exactly can we move forward? And is there anything that can be done about it? Unfortunately, there's nothing that can be done. At this point, it's a beast that just can't be tamed. I actually did a quick little poll while making this video asking whether you guys read spoilers or not, and more than 30% said yes, along with comments about people saying that while they don't look up spoilers, they end up encountering them at some point or another. So I do have some suggestions. Personally, I avoid spoilers by making sure my algorithm is aware that I don't want to see it. For example, if you're on YouTube and get a recommendation for a video where the title talks about the elimination order or spoilers for an upcoming season or episode, I immediately click the 3 dots and press not interested in this channel or do not recommend this channel. The same thing goes for places like Twitter or Instagram. Whether it's an account that I follow or not, the moment I see even a single degree of a spoiler for an upcoming episode, I will quite literally just block them on the spot. Naturally, there's some spoilers that do end up making it through, and as a Drag Race YouTuber, it's hard to avoid, but I try my best. At the end of the day though, everyone is free to read the ending of a book before starting its first page. Yet, I'm actually super curious to see the comment section for this video because I know in a way many people are gonna have different perspectives on this. So then, here are my questions. Do you think that spoiler culture has affected the way that the general fanbase engages with online discussions of the show? Are you someone that reads spoilers? Why and why not? Let me know in the comments. Thanks again to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to click the link in the description to get 10% off your first website or domain. I want to take a moment to thank my patrons. In the Elite Pink Squad, we have Matthew Burns, Sari Tish, Las Pocitas, Gay Uncle, Natasha De Leon, Cool Gal Nan, and Jet Sam Adam. And in the Green Squad, we have Cayman Rider Furry or Diesel Placer depending on what time of day you catch him, Edgar Allan Pup, The Only Sean, IJS, Not a Punch, But a Keek, Jack Beck, Bashir with the Good Beard, Galeria Gomez, Sarah G, Boiled Peanut, Max Whale, Olivia Mar, Dea, and Scarlet Rose. If you'd like to see your name on the screen, honestly, join me on Patreon, because I think I'm going to start setting goals in terms of things that I can import back into the channel from it. Anyways, thank you if you're still listening, and I'll see you guys next time.